Hi again, everyone. Gary Digital Williams here on Beltway Boxing News and Notes on the Boxing Law on the Beltway podcast. And don't forget, you can subscribe to the Boxing Law on the Beltway podcast and hear great content like news and notes, commentary, interviews, and live blow-by-blow action. Subscribe to the podcast by going to Spreaker.com, iHeartRadio.com. You can go to Google Podcasts, Stitcher.com, and TuneIn. And you can get free content on the Boxing Law on Beltway podcast. And don't forget, I can be found on Twitter at Digital25. And don't forget my blog, which celebrated 14 years. We're in our 14th year of the blog, boxinglawonthebeltway.blogspot.com. And also, we're in our 6th year now, actually going in our 7th year of the podcast here, about Boxing Law on Beltway podcast. So we're in good shape there. A lot of things to talk about this week. There's some big things coming up this week, and we're going to talk about some results from last week. One result from last week that took place. We're going to talk about early look at September as well, and we're going to have some last feedback on the card that took place this past Saturday at Live Casino in Hanover, Maryland, and how that kind of continues to shape the boxing landscape in the Beltway. And we have some time, we'll also give out some tributes. We had a week off, and we have a lot of tributes to talk about this week as well. Beltway Boxing News and Notes on the Boxing on the Beltway podcast is brought to you by Real-Time Pain Relief. From boxers to ballerinas, for shoulder pain to muscle strain, everything in between, Boxing Along the Beltway recommends Real-Time Pain Relief, the natural, plant-based, safe, fast, and effective ointment. You go to freepainoffer.com, you buy $10 worth of Real-Time Pain Relief, you get a free $10 tube of Real-Time Pain Relief. Rub it on, the pain is gone in real time. And by DeborahSpears.com, you have great jewelry that is, your first purchase of that jewelry is 20% off. And you also have great weight loss tips. You can learn expert secrets on weight loss without dieting, eating real food along the way on Deborah, Debra Spears.com. Well, again, this was a pretty big weekend, this past weekend for the Beltway, and not only did we have the great card at Maryland Live Casino in Hanover, Maryland, the Jetta Promotions card, outstanding card. We'll talk more about that a little bit later on, but it was indeed a fantastic card, nationally televised on CBS Sports Network. And also this past weekend, Rahman Jr., gold-blooded Rahman Jr., he won a 6-round unanimous decision over Rahman King Kong Ocheng of West Palm Beach, Florida, originally from Nairobi, Kenya. That took place on Friday, August 17th at the Grand Casino in Hinckley, Minnesota. Rahman Jr. wins 6 rounds for the first time in his career. He was able to win the bout by scores of 58-55 on all 3 judges' cards. Now, Rahman posted on Facebook that he said it wasn't one of his better performances, but this guy was a major step up in class for Rahman. Ocheng was without question the most experienced foe that Rahman Jr. has faced, but is also the only boxer he has faced thus far with well over 500 record. Ocheng's record now is 26-22-3 with 21 KOs. So he had a lot of experience. He had a lot of knockouts, and he had fought, decent competition. Most of it was in his native Kenya, but he fought some decent competition. So Rahman took a major step up in class this past weekend and was able to come out successful. Rahman Jr. now 6-0 with 4 KOs. So congratulations to gold-blooded Rahman Jr. And again, I kind of feel old, because I covered Rahman Jr. and Sharif Rahman, of course, but I covered their father for many years, throughout his whole career, actually. Hasim Sr., and he went on to, of course, win the Undisputed World Championship and Heavyweight Championship. And just to see his sons now performing and doing very well thus far, I mean, again, it just kind of makes me realize I've been in this business a long time. No question about that. Now, coming up this week, on the amateur side, is a good amateur show coming to the District Heights District Heights Municipal Center. District Heights Municipal Center. That's located at 2000 Marbury Drive in District Heights, Maryland. My good buddy Eddie Martin is the mayor of District Heights, Maryland now. So I'm happy to hear that. Happy to see that. Now, this card is actually a card that's presented by Diamonds in the Rough Gym, the Sweet Science Boxing, the Waffle Coop, and Pretty Boy Boxing. It's a card that'll pit, boxers from the Beltway area, primarily in D.C. and Maryland. He'll take on boxers from Philadelphia on this card. So it should be interesting to see what happens there. If you look on the flyer on my blog, you can see some of the names for the local boxers that'll be a part of this, scheduled to be a part of this, and it should be a lot of fun. It should be interesting to see what happens. So that'll be Friday, August 24th. Tickets are $20 for adults, $15 for children. There's supposed to be something going on, event starting around 5 o'clock prior to the boxing card itself. The boxing card is scheduled to get underway at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So that's Friday, August 24th at the District Heights Municipal Center, District Heights, Maryland, 2000 Marbury Drive. So look forward to seeing a part of that as well. Now, outside the area, got a nice card for Antonio, another Russell. He's the super bantamweight out of Capitol Heights, Maryland. And he will turn to action in an 8-round contest against veteran Nick Kanyankole Otieno of Nairobi, Kenya. This will be at the Minneapolis Armory in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And the bout will be shown live on FS1 and Fox Deportes. And actually, FS1 is having 2 broadcasts from this location. And Russell will be part of the first broadcast that'll begin at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time for this show. Russell is 11-0, 9 KOs, coming off a 5th-round TKO over Jonathan Lacona Ramos. That was on May 19th at the MGM National Harbor Casino in Oxon Hill, Maryland. Now, Russell was originally scheduled to compete a couple weeks ago on August 4th in Uniondale, Long Island, New York. His opponent failed his physical, so he could not perform on that one. Now, this is a very experienced veteran that Russell's going to be facing on this card. Otieno is 31-14 with 13 KOs. He'll be facing an undefeated boxer for the 4th straight time. He'll be trying to break a 3-bout losing streak. His last outing, Otieno was stopped in the 2nd round by William Foster III. That was on March 17th in Boston, Massachusetts. So it's interesting to see what happens. Russell, as we said, 11-0, 9 KOs. This should be an interesting bout there for Antonio Russell. And we'll see what happens. And again, the bout will be televised live on Fox Sports 1, FS1, and Fox Deportes. And that'll be at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Now, the man that was scheduled to be in the main event on this card was Emmanuel, the Chosen One Alim out of Richmond, Virginia. He was said to be in the main event, but he was scratched from the card, and he said on his Facebook page that something happened on his end. So he may have gotten an injury or maybe gotten ill prior to. So, but he would not be on this card. He was scheduled to take on Willie Monroe Jr., which might have been a very good bout. No question about that. So that'll be interesting to see what happens. But so Alim will not be on the card, but Antonio, another Russell, will be a part of this show. And that'll be once again on Friday, August 24th at Capitol Heights, Maryland, from taking on Nick Otieno and Russell Course from Capitol Heights, Maryland. That'll be on Friday, August 24th from the Minneapolis Armory in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And bout once again shown live on Fox Sports 1, FS1, and Fox Deportes. We take a look at September, just an early look. Now, next week, we're going to give you the whole September schedule because there are some other Beltway boxers that are scheduled to be taking on opponents, big opponents in September. Also, and I will mention this in a few minutes, but we have 3 boxing cards scheduled for September in the Beltway, 2 on the same night. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. But first, before we do that, we got actually 3 out-of-town bouts that are pretty big, and that's why I want to give you some early information on that. Now, we did talk about this one last podcast. Now it's Alexandria Spartan Marine out of Rockville, Maryland, by way of Bethesda, Maryland, by way of Romania. He is about for the IBF Intercontinental Super Flyweight title. That'll be on Saturday, September 8th at the Fabulous Forum in Inglewood, California. The bout will be part of the Superfly 3 card on that night, and will be shown on the HBO International broadcast feed. And Marine is, again, a native out of Romania. Iasu, Romania, 16-0, 11 KOs. He won his second regional title when he knocked out Michael Ruiz in the second round on April 14th in Norfolk, Virginia. That earned Marine the IBO Intercontinental Super Flyweight title. He's also the IBO International Bantamweight champion. He won that back in June of 2016. Now, Marine just moved up in ranking. He was, when we talked about this last podcast, he was ranked 10th in the world. He has now moved up to number 6 in the world in the super bantamweight division. And we will see what happens there. And he's also top ranked in the Intercontinental rankings by both the IBF and the IBO. Meanwhile, his opponent, Bruno Escalante, out of Redwood City, California, his record is 17-3-1, 7 KOs. He's riding a 3-bout winning streak, which includes an 8-round unanimous decision over Dio Ogwin on April 14th in Salinas, California. So that should be interesting to see what happens there. That's on Saturday, September 8th, and that'll be from the Forum in Inglewood, California. And again, it'll be on the international feed of HBO, so hopefully you can catch that somewhere around this country. Meanwhile, on Saturday, September 8th, this will be at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, and it'll be on the undercard of the Danny Garcia-Sean Porter bout. Brandon Bulldog Quarles out of Alexandria, Virginia, 19-4-1 with 10 KOs. He'll be in an 8-round bout against Marcus Willis of Fort Myers, Florida. He is 18-5 with 2 draws and 5 KOs. Brandon Quarles coming off a 5th-round TKO win over Fidel Monterosa Munoz. That was on May 19th at the MGM National Harbor in Oxon Hill, Maryland. He scored a 5th-round TKO there. Marcus Willis coming off a 4-round TKO win over Curtis Waller on June 9th in Key West, Florida. He has not fought the greatest of competition. Definitely, Quarles has fought solid competition. He did lose his bout prior to the Munoz bout. He lost to Tyrone Brunson by 8-round split decision. That was in March of 2017 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. He's been up and down a little bit. Has fought a little more quality competition. I mean, you look at Wills' record. His biggest win might be against Frank Gideon, and that was on in September 2016. He won a 6-round unanimous decision there, but he lost to a 1-0 boxer by the name of Dmitry Mitrofanov, and that was in January of this year in North Lake, Illinois. And he beat Waller, who was 1-6-1. He's fought the likes of Martise Logan, who's a veteran. He won a 4-round unanimous decision to him in December 2015. He fought our very own Norman the Shadow Allen out of Laurel, Maryland. He beat him by 4-round unanimous decision in April of 2015 in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. So his quality opposition, Wills' quality opposition, has kind of gone up and down a little bit. So we will see how he does against Brandon Quarles. Once again, it's an 8-round bout on Saturday, September 8th from the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. And it'll be on the undercard of that vacant welterweight title bout between Danny Garcia and Sean Porter. Then we have this news, and we just found out about this news earlier today. This is big, and this could be a milestone for me personally. I'll talk about that a little bit, but I'm more concerned about the milestone for this young lady, and that's, of course, the heavy-hitting diva herself, and that is Franchon Cruz Dezern out of Baltimore, Maryland. She'll take on Maricela La Diva Conejo of Los Angeles, California. That'll be in a 10-round bout for the interim WBC Super Middleweight Championship. This bout will be on Thursday, September 13th from the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada, and the bout is scheduled to be shown on ESPN2. Now, for Cruz Dezern, she's 3-1, 1 KO. This will be the biggest contest she's had since that pro debut she made in Las Vegas in November 2016 when she lost a 4-round unanimous decision to Claressa Shields. That bout took place at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Now, in the last outing, Cruz Dezern won a 6-round unanimous decision over Tiffany Woodard on January 12th in Verona, New York. Of course, Tori Nelson just beat Tiffany Woodard at the Dulles Sportsplex a couple weeks ago. So that's there. But Cruz Dezern won a 6-round unanimous decision over Tiffany Woodard. Conejo is 12-2 with 5 KOs. She has won 8 straight bouts since she suffered a 10-round split decision loss to Callie Reese for the WBC middleweight title. And that was in Auckland, New Zealand in April 2016. And the bout was the first major world title bout to take place in the country of New Zealand. That's amazing. No question about that. Cornejo is a regional champion. She won the WBC International Super Middleweight title. And she's coming off a third-round TKO victory over Samantha Pill. That was on July 13th in Los Angeles. So Cruz Dezern goes up against a boxer who is very experienced, more experienced than she is. And she has, this will be Cornejo's 15th pro fight. She has 5 KOs, which again, I guess this is coming more and more the norm now, because it used to not be the norm at all. But you look at boxers like our very own Tyra Shear Douglas has knockouts. She has like 4 or 5 knockouts. Tori Nelson now has 3 knockouts when she knocked out Tiffany Woodard. So maybe this is more to the point. But for Franchon Cruz Dezern, who's promoted by Salida Promotions, I don't think they have anything to do with this particular card, but this is a big moment for her. This is a moment that she has, I know she's dreamed about and thought about, and wasn't sure at one point whether or not it would take place, given some of the politics, especially in the female boxing world. So, despite that she's never gone 10 rounds, despite that she only has 4 pro, this will be only her 5th pro fight, I think it's something that Cruz Dezern had to jump on. And she had to be a part of it real soon. If not, it may not happen again. The opportunity may not come again. So this will be interesting to see what happens. So that'll be on Thursday night, September 13th. It'll be at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas. Franchon Cruz Dezern out of Baltimore taking on Maricela La Diva Cornejo. So the battle of the divas, the heavy hitting diva versus the diva. And that'll be on Thursday, September 13th for the interim WBC Super Middleweight Championship. That will be held at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino, Las Vegas, and it'll be shown live on ESPN2. Now, before I talk about what took place in Maryland Live and how that impacts what's going on in this entire Beltway, I want to give out my tributes real quickly. I'm way behind on those, and of course, everybody is giving tributes to the Queen of Soul herself, Aretha Franklin, and I'm not going to go into her history because everybody should know it. So that's one thing. But I tell you, I will say this about Aretha Franklin: no one has given more quality single moments than Aretha Franklin. When I wrote my tribute to her on Facebook, that's what I focused on, because every time she sang, it seemed to be some semblance of an event. Okay, it wasn't so much that she was at an event, it's her talent and her abilities made it an event. Okay. When she sang America the Beautiful at WrestleMania 3, that was an event. I mean, from the intro that Vince McMahon gave her all the way through her song, it was an event. Okay, she also, that was in Pontiac, Michigan, the old Pontiac Silverdome. She then sang America the Beautiful on WrestleMania 23, which is at Ford Field in Detroit. So, it's good to see her back in there. When she sang opera at the very last minute at the Grammys back in 1998 for an ailing Luciano Pavarotti, that was an event. Because, again, if you don't know that story, Pavarotti was scheduled to sing it that night, and at the very last moment, doctors wouldn't allow him to go because he had a bad throat. Aretha Franklin had heard Pavarotti rehearse. Well, actually, she listened to a recording of Pavarotti rehearsing this number. She said, "I got it," and went that night and performed it flawlessly. And years later, she performed that same opera for the Pope himself. Okay. When she sang at the 2015 Kennedy Center Honors, she sang Carole King's You Make Me Feel Like a Natural Woman. Carole King was honored that year as a Kennedy Center honoree. Aretha Franklin's been at it herself, but she was honored. Carole King was honored. And to see her total joy of watching Aretha Franklin sing that song was amazing. It really was. It was just amazing. And so, and then of course that same year, that was the same night, the Obamas were there, of course, and you could see President Obama crying a little bit, shedding a tear, listening to how wonderful that version was. So again, every time Aretha Franklin sang, it turned out to be a memorable event. And that was the great thing. And that's what I always remember about her. That and the fact that unlike very few other artists that have ever been around, one, Ray Charles comes to mind. And ironically, Ray Charles sang America the Beautiful at WrestleMania 2. And then Aretha Franklin sang number 3. But my point is, they were able to take songs that other people sang and make it their own. Okay? Respect, as some of you may know, was originally recorded by and written by Otis Redding. And Otis Redding said it one night when Aretha's version came out. Otis Redding was at a concert once somewhere, and she said, "That young girl took my song." Okay, so it happens, and Ray Charles did that. Ray Charles did that with "Georgia on My Mind." His version of "Georgia on My Mind," which was written, I believe, by Hoagy Carmichael. His version is the state song of Georgia. His version, not the song, but his version of the song is the state song. So again, Aretha was able to do that, and she's a loss that can never be replaced, no question about that. So that's my tribute to her. Now, as far as my other love, professional wrestling, we lost a lot of people recently. We lost Nikolai Volkov, which was a huge loss because he's from my era. He's from my area of wrestling. I remember when he had those great feuds with Bruno Sammartino over the world title. I actually had a chance to watch another couple of episodes of Mid-South wrestling out of the Louisiana territory. And that's when he was starting to work with Crusher Khrushchev, Barry Darsow. And it was turning him from Crusher Darsow to Crusher Khrushchev. Of course, Crusher Khrushchev would later become Smash or Demolition. But I'm just saying, I saw that, and of course his legendary tag team with the Iron Sheik. Just great moments from him, and he was fantastic. And actually, he lived in the Baltimore area. He lived in Baltimore County after he retired from wrestling, and actually ran for public office at one time. And I had a chance to meet him a couple of occasions. He came to a boxing card in Baltimore. I think he went to the Burns Arena for a card and actually sang the American national anthem. Of course, he was famous for singing two songs. Really. He's famous for singing the Russian national anthem, and of course, who can forget his tremendous version of the song "Cara Mia" on the wrestling album. So he was a fantastic person, great guy, really nice person, really was. And hate to hear his passing, no question about that. We also, of course, lost Brian Christopher Lawler, who was the son of Jerry the King Lawler, and I got to see him in the Attitude Era with Too Cool tag team there, and of course the time prior to that when he was wrestling for the light heavyweight title, and he would take on Taka Michinoku, who was a Japanese wrestler, and Jim Ross would always kid him about actually admitting that Brian Christopher was his son. To talk to Jerry Lawler, and he would try to get him to admit that Brian Christopher was Jerry Lawler's son, and Lawler would deny it all the time. So, but it was really interesting. Of course, again, the Too Cool team with Scotty 2 Hotty, and of course with Rikishi in there. Some quality moments there, no question about that. That was a tough loss, and then also Jim the Anvil Neidhart, tremendous wrestler from the '80s. Got a chance to see a little bit of his work in Mid-South. But, of course, he'll always be remembered for being a part of the Hart Foundation. First with Bret the Hitman Hart, the original tag team, the Hart Foundation. They won 2 world WWE titles. And then later on in his career, he teamed with Bret's brother, Owen Hart, the late Owen Hart. And then they had a faction in WWE of the Hart Foundation that featured Bret Hart, Jim Neidhart, Owen Hart, Davey Boy Smith and Brian Pillman. And the real sad part about that is that it was a great faction, no question about that. But the sad part about it now, years later, that Bret is the only one left. All the other guys are gone now. So that's really sad. It really is, no question about that. And then there was a wrestler that just passed. I just found out about this from the famed ring announcer Gary Michael Capetta. And you have to be a real hardcore WWE fan to really get this. But it was a guy by the name of Steve Travis. Steve Travis wrestled in the Worldwide Wrestling Federation. That was in the 70s. And he wrestled, actually wrestled in the Mid-Atlantic prior around that same time too. But he wrestled as a face, a good guy. And he wrestled there for a while. Wrestled with a guy by the name of Quick Draw Rick McGraw. And they were known as the Carolina Connection. And they were a mid-level tag team, but decent. A lot of fun to watch. And they were popular with the fans and all. Steve Travis, one of the things about him was he got out before the business got him, so to speak. Because around that time, that's when the drug culture, the steroid culture, really started to hit. And he didn't get involved in it, but he watched it around him. And two people in particular that he got to know passed away at very early ages. One was Rick McGraw. He passed away at the age of 30. And he was doing steroids. And the other guy was a great wrestler by the name of Jay Youngblood, who was best known as being the tag team partner of Rick Steamboat. And I had a chance to watch some of that. And it was amazing. It was amazing to see that tag team. Rick Steamboat always says that as great of his matches were with Ric Flair and Randy Savage, a lot of people forget how good he was as a tag team with Jay Youngblood, and they were phenomenal. And Jay Youngblood passed away at the age of 30 as well. So it was tough. It really was. It was tough. So Steve Travis got out before it was too late, but he just passed away this past week as well. So I just want to get those tributes out of the way because, again, a lot of folks, and again, I appreciate you indulging me with those, especially on the wrestling kick, because that's something very, very dear to me as well. Now, finally, when boxing came to MGM National Harbor for the first time back in April of last year, I noted how the landscape of boxing in the Beltway changed, because it gave the area a real marquee location for boxing that we truthfully never really had before, and other than now Capital One Arena, we never used it. The last time we used Capital One Arena was for those cards in 1999, early 2000. But the MGM National Harbor gave us one marquee location. The Jet of Emotions card at Live Casino in Hanover, Maryland, gave us a second marquee location. Now I get jokingly criticized, and I'll say it is usually said in a joking manner to me, that when I talk about Beltway boxing, I talk mostly about DC. And I don't talk about Maryland enough. I get that a lot from the commission, Maryland State Athletic Commission. You don't talk about Maryland enough. Well, right now, in our final thought on this podcast, I will talk about Maryland today. And Maryland has blown up to the point where they are, without question, the leaders in this Beltway right now. There used to be a time back in the mid to late 90s where DC had all the boxers and Maryland had all the venues. Now, not to say that DC didn't have venues, because they were using Convention Center, using DC Armory, and they had a couple others along the way, and have had a couple others since then, the Sphinx Club, the North Hall and Eastern Market. But they always had the boxers. That's not the case anymore. Think about what's going on now. All three of our world champions represent Maryland. Jared Hurd is from Accokeek. Gary Russell Jr. from Capitol Heights. Javante Davis from Baltimore. If Franchon Cruz-Dezurn wins her world title, she'll be from Baltimore. Okay. And then you look at people like Tori Nelson, who's out of Virginia, and Jennifer Salinas, who's out of Virginia, and Tyra Shear Douglas, who technically is the closest we come to D.C., even though she trains out of Baltimore. Baltimore has the boxers. You look at the regional champions. DeMar Nicholson just won a title over the weekend. He's from Laurel, Maryland. Lamont Roach Jr. is from Marlboro, Maryland. Even though they mention him as being from D.C., he's not really from D.C. He's from Upper Marlboro. Alexander Marine is from Bethesda, Maryland. Okay, those are just some of the ones right off the top of my head. Malik Hawkins is from Baltimore. That's another one. So right now, Maryland has the venues, and they have the boxers, and they've had the bouts. They've had the cards. The Maryland and Jetta Promotions, the card at Maryland Live Casino, was tremendous. Right now, it is the clubhouse leader for the card of the year. And one of the bouts on the card, I'll be shocked if that does not end up as bout of the year. The bout between Donald Walls and Ashton Sykes was an absolute classic. It was incredible from bell to bell. From the first bell to the last bell. It was tremendous. That is the clubhouse leader. And again, I'll be shocked if any of them knocks that off his throne. It won't happen. I don't think it's going to happen. But right now, Maryland has everything. Okay. They've already had bouts this year. They've had 4 cards this year. They have 2 more scheduled for September. There's one going to be on Saturday, September 22nd. And again, talk about venues. And again, they've used venues all over the state. Okay? They've used, over the last couple of years, Michael's 8th Avenue, Martin's West, the Burns Arena. Now they're using, the Timonium Fairgrounds a few years ago. A couple of years ago, they used Timonium Fairgrounds. The casinos now, they've had bouts at all 3 of the casinos in the area now. They've had one card at Horseshoe Casino, a number of cards now at MGM National Harbor, and their first card at Maryland Live. They're going to use a brand new location coming up on, it's brand new to pro. It's never had a pro show before, but it's had an amateur show. It had an amateur show years ago. I want to say back in 92, 93. They had an amateur show. But this will be the first pro show to take place, and it'll be on Saturday, September 22nd at the A.C. Jordan Arena, which is on the campus of Bowie State University in Bowie, Maryland. So that card is coming up. We'll tell you more about that next week, but scheduled to be on that card, the return of Alantez Sliza Fox, and also Bowie State graduate Greg, the sharpshooter outlaw, scheduled to be on that card. That'll be on Saturday, September 22nd. Then on Saturday, September 29th, they go to one of the real landmark places for Beltway boxing in the state of Maryland, and that is Rosecroft Raceway in Fort Washington, Maryland, both on the amateur and on the pro side. So they have the venues right now. They have tremendous venues, and they are using those venues, and they're trying new venues. Of course, a few years ago they had Coppin State University. They did one at Coppin State, and I know Coppin State wants to have another one. Just a matter of getting it done, basically. So we'll see what happens. So that's where Maryland is right now, as opposed to the other 2 parts of the Beltway. Northern Virginia, they've had 4 cards. They're scheduled to have, I think, 1 or 2 more this year. Okay. DC has had a grand total of 1 card. Now, the weird thing about DC is that 2 things. One thing kind of limits DC a little bit, and that is all the venues. The majority of the venues in DC that they can use don't have good parking. Okay, You almost have to take the subway. And that is a weird thing sometimes because the subway closes down on the weekends at 1 o'clock. So depending on how the card goes, what time the card starts, time the card ends, there's no guarantee you get out there in time to catch the last train home. Okay, that's an issue there. And the venues are also, for the most part, relatively old. But except the convention center is not old. But again, there's an issue with the parking there. The Army doesn't have an issue with the parking per se, but it's an old building. Okay. Now, there are new buildings cropping up in DC they have yet to use. Okay. There's the Anthem. They haven't used that yet. World Wrestling Entertainment has used the Anthem. They had an NXT card down there. Okay, but boxing has not done that yet. So promoter has to get down there to do that. Sphinx Club's in a good location. Fortunately, the last time we were there back in June, the Wi-Fi did work. So hopefully next time we're down there, we can broadcast from there. Okay, that may help a little bit. I don't know. It may help. There's a new location near St. Elizabeth's Hospital, former St. Elizabeth's Hospital, where that's where the G League team for the Washington Wizards, the Capital City Go-Go, will be playing their games, and the Mystics will start playing there next year. So that's a location. They haven't had one in a college since Cassandra White did it back in 2013, 14, something like that, when she had one at Howard University. But they're the only college that have done it. You know, GW hasn't had one. American has had one. Well, I'll tell you about it. UDC has had one. Excuse me. UDC has had a couple, actually. So UDC has done theirs. So UDC and Howard, they're the only ones who've had them. George Washington, Georgetown, American have never had boxing in their arenas. So that's something you got to think about. But the Anthem, the new location over in Southeast DC, where St. Elizabeth's Hospital is, some promoters got to step in there and do something. Okay, they used one of the recreation centers, Merrick Recreation Center. That wasn't bad. Parking was limited there. So that was tough, but other than that, it was there. But they need to work on that. They need to work on parking and using their venues there. Okay, even Virginia started to spread out in their venues. I mean, they're not just totally using the ABC Sports Complex. They haven't used Eagle Bank Arena since the Lamont Peterson Julio Diaz card. They're now using Dulles Sportsplex, the Michael and Son Sportsplex out in Dulles, and also there's a couple. I think it's another venue out there. Oh, the Silver Gun Arena in Ashburn, Virginia, was another one. So they're expanding their territory a little bit. DC's going to have to do that. And some promoters are going to take some chances and do that. They shouldn't have any problems working with the commission. DC Commission's been doing a wonderful job. And they want boxing here. The problem is no promoters setting up. I don't know if the venues cost too much, or again, the issues with the parking. That could be the case. The thing about Maryland venues, most Maryland venues is not a major issue to park. The only time that is kind of an issue, Burns sometimes has an issue to park because they will tow sometimes, and if they park in the wrong place, so they're mostly street parking. Michael St. Avenue is mostly street parking, but there's a lot of it because all the warehouses shut down for the weekend. So there's a lot more street parking there. But places like Rosecroft, fantastic parking there. The MGM National Harbor is great for that. In fact, MGM National Harbor is great getting in and out of as well. So that's a lot of fun. Maryland Live wasn't bad. Situation there. So, they have places where you can park. It's free parking, and it's easy parking and easy in and out access in and out of there. So Maryland has everything right now. The boxers, they've got the venues, they have the promoters working, and it'll be interesting to see what happens going forward with that. But Maryland is a leader right now. There's no question about that. Now, I did say there were 2 cards on September 22nd. We talked about the card at Bowie State University AC Jordan Arena on Saturday, September 22nd. There's also a card at the ABC Sports Complex in Springfield, Virginia, and that'll be on Saturday, August the 22nd. So far, Patrick Harris and Edgar Torres are the only Beltway boxers on this card. And that's going to be interesting, you know. And I say this kind of grudgingly, and kind of carefully, because I actually will be the ring announcer for that particular card. Henry Jones, Discombobby Jones will be doing I assume will be doing the card at Bowie State University. That's Shabazz Brothers card. I'm doing the TAC Promotions card at the ABC Sports Complex, and we're going to do kind of dual coverage of that. Juan Marshall will be at the card at Bowie State, and I'll be, of course, at the card at the ABC Sports Complex. So my grudging fear on this card for the show in Virginia is that, looking at the lineup so far, it's already on BoxRec. Patrick Harris and Edgar Torres are the only two local boxers on the card. And so that could be an issue. And I'm perfectly honest with you. I'm totally transparent. It will be an issue. Unless they change that a little bit. It would be nice, actually, if they changed the date, to be perfectly honest with you. Moved up a week, up to the 15th would be nice. But if they don't do that, it's fine. Nothing we can do about it. And I'll definitely be there. But the fact there's only two Beltway boxers on the card, I will say, without a doubt, it troubles me. And that'll be interesting to see what happens there. So we'll talk more about that all next week. Give you the whole September schedule coming up. But a lot of things going on in September, so we'll see what happens there. So that will do it for another edition of Beltway Boxing News and Notes. Remember, the Boxing on Beltway podcast brings you the Beltway Boxing News and Notes, brought to you by Real Time Pain Relief. Don't forget to go to freepainoffer.com, buy $10 worth of real-time pain relief. You get a free $10 tube of real-time pain relief. Rub it on, the pain is gone in real time. And by DeborahSpears.com, you get great weight loss tips and great jewelry by going to Deborah, Debra Spears.com. I'm Gary Digital Williams. Thanks for joining me, everybody. Always remember, keep supporting the best boxing in the world, the boxing along the Beltway. Thanks for listening. Take care.